have no notes. I'm just using this because I don't know, feel more comfortable. But I had all these things to share. Now that I'm up here, I forgot everything. But there's a lot of stories I can tell about Ecuador. Some are funny, some are adventurous, some are sad. But I guess I'll just tell one story. Well, a few, I guess, a couple. But when we first got to Ecuador, it was awesome because the people from Ecuador, the church, they greeted us. They picked us up, and it was a 6-hour bus ride back to the church. And they are the craziest drivers in Ecuador. Not only do they go fast, not only do they go 7 to 8 on curves, not only do they, it's a 2-way lane, not only do they go in the other lane in curves, but also when there's fog, you can't see anything in front of you. They still do that. So it's pretty crazy. So that was like the first experience. I'm like, oh, we're in Ecuador. Also, I think one thing I really wanted to check out was the legendary mountain that CJ, Peter, and I think some other people went on. I really wanted to know if it's true. The dogs are really, it's just like 20 dogs in the hill when you come there. So first day, me and Matt, and we went up there. We kept on walking, there's no dogs. So we were like, it's kind of weird, no dogs. We're like halfway up the mountain. And if there's a dog, we can't outrun them because they're so far up. And then as we were walking up, we see like a little donkey. And then we thought it was a dog, so we got scared. Then we kept on walking up. And then we saw a house. I saw a house up there. And then like a little tiny hill. And then I looked over the hill. I see all these dogs just laying there. I was like, oh shoot. And then out of nowhere, one dog just gets up, starts barking. You see like 10 dogs getting up. And then we start running, and they start chasing us and stuff. But yeah. Huh?
We chased you and then what?
Made it out. Yeah, we made it out. That's why I'll tell stories. I suck at stories.
So you guys just ran and now in there.
Yeah, that's sick. Okay.
Part two.
But I guess we're supposed to share our testimony of Ecuador, what we got out of it. And for me, I got a lot out of it actually. I learned a lot about myself, a lot about missions. And when I first went to Ecuador, before you left, we had a group meeting and we all had a prayer request. And my prayer request was, I wasn't really excited for the missions because, as most of you guys know, I don't like children. I really don't like them. I have no fun with them. I see people like Matt and all that. They love children, hugging, kissing them. I can't do that. I'll hit them in the head, things like that. But that was my prayer request. When I go to Ecuador, God really just, I knew God was going to do something crazy, something amazing. I didn't know what it was. So I went to Ecuador. Like I said, I learned a lot about myself as a person, as a Christian. One thing I learned, and like I shared, being in praise, was we had to be open for God to use us. We ask for God to do great things through us. We want to see great things, but whenever there's opportunity, we jump back because we're scared, we're embarrassed, or things like that. And Ecuador really opened that part of my heart, I guess so. I guess I told PD when I made short, something like a good talker. But I guess, I got really blessed by the kids. I fell in love with the kids at Ecuador. They're so cute, and just their heart are so pure and innocent, so different from the people in the States, I guess. Because I don't know, it's just really different for me. I just fell in love with them, and I think the first time where I just man, these kids are beautiful was we're singing this, we're doing body worship. There's this one song we sing Hosanna. But it's not Hosanna from the one that we sing. It's not Hosanna. So it's not that song. But we're dancing, we're singing Hosanna. All the kids, like 100+ kids, singing Hosanna. They were so like passionate about it. They're so, passionate about it. So yeah, I was looking at them, and as I was dancing, I started tearing up. Like, oh man, this is beautiful. This is why we came to Ecuador, to plant these seeds in these hearts. If you look out on the city, people like our age and older, they're really different. It's like a lot of drinking. If you go to in front of the church, there's bottles everywhere in front of the church and stuff, and adultery everywhere going on. But when I was looking at these kids, I was like, man, this is a new generation. It's like a generation of young believers who are gonna grow up and they're gonna change that area. I was like, oh, it's pretty cool. But that was the time where my heart started changing, and I think the last day, the day before he left, Pastor Kim's wife told us to come up, and we all sit in line. I thought it was gonna be a regular goodbye thingy, but at the end she was like, go out and pray for all the kids. So she just told us to go out and pray for the kids, and we started praying for them, and why wouldn't you just put your hands on them? He knows again. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, so basically, yeah, he just started But yeah, I started crying. You knew the spirit was there. It was real powerful. This little kid just crying. It was awesome. Yeah. I guess the thing I shared today with the praise band before we came up was Pastor Kim. One thing I learned from Pastor Kim from Ecuador was no matter how talented you are or how great of a speaker you are, and he was saying you can never transform people's lives. You can never change them. But he was saying, basically, to transform people's lives, you need the Holy Spirit. And so, yeah. Okay.
Makes it a little easier because if I start crying, then
Put it on one. It's gonna lead, so put it on one. Yeah. Move it up. It's inside the crack.
So, Ecuador was actually my first missions, and going into it, I wasn't actually prepared as I probably should have been. Looking back, I remember right before we left, I thought, before we actually decided to go to Ecuador, I thought it was going to be like last year where you guys were going to go to Puebla or something like that and do manual labor. And not that I didn't have the heart for Ecuador or what they provided, but I thought one thing that I could actually give out was, I can use what I have and I can use my physical, lift things up and put things down.
It's physical strength.
I thought it was simple enough. So I remember actually talking with Gina, and I said that I wasn't really confident because even though I grew up in a church, I never went to VBS. I didn't know what VBS was. I didn't know what the teachers did there, and I didn't know what the children did there. So my idea of VBS was kids go there, you do what PD did. You preach to them, you share the gospel with them. And I thought, I don't know enough about the gospel, so I was very timid. I was very scared about it. But what Chung said earlier, before the praise actually started, when he talked about being timid and being just letting that all go. That really did connect with me when I was in Ecuador. So by the time I had actually decided to go, it was like basically no turning back. PD said, I'm buying the tickets, and if you're gonna go. So I had to go. So the verse that I have, is actually from 2 Timothy. It's chapter 1, verse 7. It says, "For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline." And that really spoke out to me, especially when I was in Ecuador. One thing that I learned there was, like Daniel said, God has a lot more planned for us than we can even begin to imagine. And when I was actually even on the airplane, I was scared of what I was going to do there. Everyone kind of had their niche of what we were going to do. I didn't find my niche until Pastor Kim kind of threw me and Matt into it. The whole Taekwondo thing, we got thrown into it. So we didn't know what we were going to do, but like I said, God has bigger plans for us than we can even imagine, and it really did show. One story that I do want to tell that kind of does reflect that is actually, it was on the Monday that we were there, and it actually involves Daniel and Matt. It was our first night that we were there. So we were kind of joking around, and Matt got mad, and he ended up leaving the room. Everyone else was asleep. It was just me and Daniel that was up. And originally, after he stormed out of the room, instead of going back and be like, "Oh, we should comfort him," we tried to go to sleep. But DK was snoring, and so was another guy named Joel. And they were snoring like basically back to back, and so there was no break. And so I remember we turned the lights off, and I was laying in bed, and I had my headphones in because I couldn't sleep because of DK's snoring. But I could hear both of them snoring so loudly that I started to laugh, just laughing because it was so ridiculous how much they were snoring. And as soon as I started laughing, Chung started laughing. And he gets up, he turns the lights on, and he says, "I can't sleep here." So I thought, oh, what's he gonna do? And I thought originally he was going to go look for Matt, but he actually grabbed his mattress and his pillow and his blanket, and he says, "I'm going to sleep on the roof." And I don't know if anyone saw the pictures from the actual place, but it was cold, it was loud because of all the loud animals, and it was actually very dusty because of all the construction. So I followed Daniel to tell him it was a terrible idea, and so we both went up, and I was actually surprised because I didn't know Matt was going to actually be upstairs, up on the roof, and I think we startled him. Did we startle you? I was surprised to see him there, and I was surprised to see him praying. And so all three of us, Daniel with his mattress, went to apologize to Matt for everything that happened around the jokes and stuff like that. And it wasn't really a big deal. And so Matt just said, "Oh, it's not a big deal. I just came here to pray and just have some alone time with God." And so the best part about that was because that was the second day, all three of us, like Daniel said before, had a different heart of when we actually entered. Daniel said that he, doesn't like kids, and he wasn't that excited for it prior to the missions itself. But when we were talking that day, he started talking about the kids, and he started I could see the joy, kind of being uplifted in himself. And like he was saying, I could see that change that was happening through him. Matt also, I talked to him privately before we went on missions, and he was saying to me that he thought his heart wasn't ready for it, and he thought that he was the black sheep out of the whole group, and that. Sorry for sharing that, but yeah, he thought he was a black sheep out of the whole group, and that he thought that he almost didn't have a place in it. And seeing or having that conversation with him up on the roof, I could really see that he was there for a purpose. And I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but when we had that conversation, I didn't really open up about how I felt about it. All I said was I agreed with you guys, but I shared with you later, Matt, that I felt exactly the same way as you. I just never verbalized it. Before Ecuador, while I was still, at this church, I was living kind of two lives, duality. And I was living the life of church. When I walked through the doors, I praised God, but once I walked out, I abandoned Him. And one thing that I definitely got out of Ecuador was I got a better heart for God. I could actually feel His presence, and I definitely got transformed by it. And that moment was the moment that I kind of realized it, where it all clicked, that no matter where your heart is before, God can do amazing things, and I could see it in them, and that's how I felt it as well. So that's the first thing I got out of it. The second thing that I got out of it was that God's love transcends all barriers, even language. none of us were fluent in Spanish. All of us maybe knew a couple of words, some of us more than the other, but none of us were fluent in Spanish, and they weren't fluent in English. So there was a communication barrier that happened, and I actually think that was probably more of a blessing than it was not. It might have been hard for us to talk to them at first, but the thing with communication is there's words and then there's communicating. You don't have to talk to really communicate with each other. I remember Matt said it best when he said that one of the kids that he's going to miss the most was Pablo. He said that he could sit right next to him, not say a word, and they'd have a really good time. He said he's going to miss that, just sitting right next to him and then just spending time with them, even if they don't say a word. And that's exactly what happened with, I'm pretty sure, every single person. Every single person that had a little kid, whether they had a favorite or not, they wouldn't talk to them. They would sometimes just give them a hug or kick a ball or something like that. But that was truly a blessing time. And one of the kids that I miss the most right now is Stalin. I'm sure everyone remembers Stalin because he was like the troublemaker, the whole thing. And of course, I'd miss him. And I'm going to be pretty frank. When I first met him, he annoyed me. He annoyed me a lot because he was loud. He was kind of like Jill, actually. He was loud. He poked at you. He called you nicknames and stuff like that. But Craig, I don't know how I'm Craig, but you call me Craig. He called me Michael Jackson. That's what Stalin called me. I don't know why. He poked my stomach. He poked everyone's stomach, and then he just tried to get a rise out of someone. He just tried to get people's attention. And like I said, it annoyed me at first because I would be doing something, and all of a sudden he'd come and just poke me or something. And that was a Sunday. And then I remember the first Monday of VBS when we were there, when we were up in front of the crowd, I was scanning the room, and I was looking for a familiar face so I could kind of focus in on them. And I actually caught eyes with him, and I actually saw him while we were actually doing the body worship. And he was standing actually against a pillar, and he was standing still. And so I gestured to him oh, dance with us or sing with us. And he I don't know if you guys remember, but he does this thing where he just shakes his head and he winks at you. So he did that, and so he shook his head and he winked, and he continued to have his arms crossed and very closed off. And so after that, PD actually asked every one of the kids there if they knew, raise their hand if they knew who Jesus was. And for whatever reason, my eyes, concentrated on him again, and his hand didn't raise. And at that time, it didn't really, affect me, because in the back of my mind, I still thought he was a little annoying, but it didn't really affect me. And I remember when we were doing the martial arts and stuff like that, he wasn't really participating. Remember, we were kicking, and he would just no, he'd just walk away, and he'd go cause trouble somewhere. And it wasn't until the next day where it actually bothered me, because he didn't actually come on the second day, and I noticed that he wasn't there, and so I was actually looking for him. And the fact that he wasn't there kind of actually broke my heart, because I started thinking, oh man, maybe I missed my chance to actually reach out to him. What if he doesn't come back? I thought maybe we pushed him, when I told him to sing and dance, that I pushed him a little bit too hard, and that maybe that's my last chance or only chance I ever get to know him. But luckily he did come back on Wednesday, and I asked him why he came back or where he was. He said something, I don't know where he was, but yeah. So at that time I knew that I had to spend a little bit more time with him, and I built a better relationship with him. I joked around with him, I hung around with him a lot more, and I tried to have conversations with him more. Just spend as much time with him as I could. And I remember on, I think, Thursday, I could definitely see a change in him. As we were spending more time together, I could start to see him dancing a little bit more. He was actually participating when we were doing the martial arts and stuff like that, and he was more inclined to sing and dance and everything. And I was walking the kids home, and he actually stayed at the church usually until nighttime, but he came with me, and we were walking together, and then there was these two little kids, and I asked them oh, where do you live? And then he told me that they're his brother and sister. And I looked at them, and they looked nothing alike. They looked like me and Joey. That's how different they looked. One of the kids there told me that they have different fathers. And I started to understand why he wants attention, why he, pokes at people, why he makes outrageous, antics and stuff like that. It's because he wants attention. He wants to feel love. And that's what we were doing when we were there. We were hugging these kids. We were giving them love. And that's all they cared about. God's love pouring down on us was what we reflected back on them, and that was, I think, one of the biggest blessings of it. And at the last VBS day on that Friday, when PD actually asked all the kids that want to know Jesus and want to know God to stand up, it actually, like, in my mind, I never fist bumped, but in my mind I was fist bumping because I actually saw Stalin like stand up, and he stood up, and when you challenged him and said that, who wants to know Jesus, who wants to know God, and that was such an encouragement to me because of where he was before and where he was after, and so obviously it was a truly blessing experience to experience that. But the, I guess, saddest, but also like the best memory that I will have of him is right before, when we were about to leave, the night before, after we had those burgers and we were playing the games, me and Stalin were sitting down, and the girls were playing a game, and he was talking to me, and I was kind of caught up in the games that were going. It was a quarters game, so I was really caught up in that game, and but Stalin wanted my attention, so I knew that this was one of the last times I'd be able to actually like talk to him and like pay attention to him. So I looked over at him, and then he picked up a pencil actually on the seat. The seat that we were sitting on was these stone seats, benches. And he had a pencil that someone, I guess, had left from the classes. And obviously he speaks Spanish and I speak English, right? But he wrote on the thing, "I love you," right? And then he asked me, "¿Cómo se dice en español?" Which means, how do you say it in Spanish, right? And so I said, "Te amo." And I wrote "Te amo" on it, right? And then he just looked at me, and I looked at him, and then we shook heads. And then, like, for me, it was kind of like the idea of, like, I think he just wanted to hear that someone loved him, you know, like, because he didn't feel that. And that was like the truly blessing experience that I had. And I think it really reflects off of everyone's, what everyone did at missions in Ecuador. All we did was, like I said, we glorified God, and God's love came into us, and we sent it back to the children. And through that, we could feel the fire burning up in them, and we could definitely feel the growth. And like Daniel said before, if there is going to be a change in Catamayo, and there's no doubt in my mind there is going to be. It's going to be through them, and that's the reason why when we were up on that rooftop, all three of us said, we don't want to miss out on their growth, not only physically but spiritually. We want to be there for them spiritually. We don't want them to think that we were there just for a week and then we're going to forget about them. I continue to pray for them every single day, and I want to say that I'm gonna for the next year, and I want to go back next year and see how they are, not only taller, but also I'm hoping that they're going to have a bigger fire for God, and just like I said, if there's going to be a change, it's going to be through them. So.
I kind of wish I went first. I don't have notes, so I'm not going to use this. No notes. So, as many of you guys know, this was also my first mission trip. Prior to going, I didn't really want to go either. I have a lot of friends that have gone on mission trips throughout the world, and I always wonder, what can you really do in 1 week? 1 week is such a short time. Like, what can you really do? So when people give me their support letters or ask me to pray for this, I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. But I always wonder, what can you really do? For some reason, this trip, I decided to go after talking to a few people. They encouraged me to go, and I was like, okay, I'll go. I travel a lot, so this is just another country I could cross off my list. And then little did I know that in 1 week, the whole idea of you going to bless them, but really being blessed back tenfold, really happened when I was in Ecuador. So we got to Ecuador on a Saturday. So from Saturday to Tuesday, I can honestly say in my 23 years of life, it was the happiest week of my life. I had so much joy. It was just amazing. I fell in love with the country, the people, the culture, the food, everything. It was amazing. And I say all the way up till Tuesday night because I think last week PD mentioned ER. And, so that was me. I would say ER. So on Wednesday, I get really sick. I mean, I've never been this sick in my whole entire life sick. I am getting a stomach flu, just like Albert. We both got really bad virus. That was kind of it was really random. So I was sick the whole entire day on Wednesday, miserable. I couldn't keep anything down. Everyone kept telling me to drink water, but I couldn't even keep that down. So I stopped drinking water, and towards the end of the night, midnight, I'm a little delirious. I think I scared Shiwar and Jenny because I was talking out loud and I couldn't concentrate. I was scaring myself, so eventually they just said, let's just take her to the hospital so I could get an IV. So we went there, and it was amazing because it's all free, the medical care in Ecuador, even though it's bad quality, it was all free. So it was nice, and I was able to sleep and get hydrated because I was really, really loopy. So that was my whole entire Wednesday. I think we get back from the hospital around like 3 or 4 a.m. and PD and Matt and Jenny and Shiwan and Sister Alejandro were there, and I felt so bad because I know they were missing out on sleep in the cold waiting for me to get better. So I regained my strength a little bit on Thursday, but not fully. I would take breaks, I would sleep for a little bit, come back down, and it was a struggle because I really, really, really wanted to get back to the whole routine. I wanted to participate, I wanted to go back to my English class. I had promised my English class we would continue this little thing like this little game we had going on. I couldn't do that, and I was really disappointed and really kind of sad because I knew my days were limited there. So the rest of the week I'm loopy. I don't think I fully recovered till Monday, and I didn't really know why until towards the end of the trip when we were leaving Ecuador and we were coming back to the U.S. I realized that even though I was really sick, it came at a perfect time in my life. Right the night before I left for Ecuador, I was working till 10 p.m. And for a government job, that's weird. I didn't leave my building till like 9:45. And then I get home and I work more, and I need to sleep till 3 or 4. And it kind of, that night reflects many nights actually, where I'm just working a lot and work consumes my life and takes up a lot of my time and soaks up like time that I could be spending with my family or my friends or church even. So when I was sick, I didn't have control over anything, like I said. I was really weak and very, very vulnerable. I hate crying in front of people, and I'm not going to cry up here. So I hate crying in front of people, but I cried a lot that day because I was so lost. Like I was so drained. I was so tired. I was physically tired from not being able to sleep. I was just tired. I was tired of the way I had been living my life, consumed in work. And a lot of you guys know I'm a control freak. I like to have control over everything. I don't like giving responsibilities to other people. I like making sure that I do every little detail myself, and I do everything solo on my own, independent girl. But I realized when I was sick that I needed other people. Shiwan and Jenny are actually the age of my little sisters, and it kind of reminded me of what's back home, broken relationships there, where I can't rely on my family and I can't rely on a lot of my friends, and I have a lot of trust issues. So it was a humbling experience because I was so sick to the point where I only had God, and God was the only thing I could latch on to, and God was the only thing that made sense through all the hours of me being miserable. So, it was a really big blessing in disguise. I was physically hurt and emotionally drained, but it was so necessary because I realized that if I'm not vulnerable, I can't serve the Lord. And if I want to make a difference in my life and, walk with God, I'm going to have to be open, and I'm going to have to be transparent and weak, and I'm going to have to rely on my brothers and my sisters, which is something new to me. That's a big part of what I learned. Another thing that I learned was I actually like Chung. I don't really like kids. It's kind of forceful when I play with them. I just think they're cute from afar, but after a couple hours I get really annoyed too. But I fell in love with the kids there. The first day I was there, we had just arrived on time for the 6 a.m. Service, and Hannah comes up to me. She doesn't know me. She just plops down on my lap and just like stays with me the whole day. And I'm like, this is so weird. I mean, kids usually don't gravitate towards me. And then I wasn't going to share the story, but I was just thinking about it when Mike was up. So when the pool was being filled, or it had just been filled and everyone was doing their own thing, I was playing with the kids and we were playing by the edge of the water, but eventually all 5 or 6 of them got in the water and I was like, oh gosh, they're all wet and cold now. And so I take Hannah and Mateo and Jeanette to the second level apartment to get changed. And Hannah, she like is running around in her underwear and I'm like chasing her and trying to get her clothes on. And then Mateo is freezing cold and he's wearing a diaper, so he's freezing and I'm trying to change him, but his head gets stuck in the sleeve, and I'm like trying to pull it down, he's like crying, and then like Jeanette's coming up to me telling me I need to change his diaper, and I was like, okay, and I'm like running around and like, and then they find gummy bears and they tell me they need to take vitamin C, and I was like, okay, so I'm trying to do all this stuff, and I realized during that time that this was pure joy, and that, like one day I want this too. That's something I never thought I would want, like kids bugging me, but it was really a sweet moment that I had with them. And yeah, it was a lot of joy. So yeah, I feel like I'm rambling, but yeah, so the trip was amazing. I definitely can't wait to go back. I know that this is just the tip of the iceberg. I know that missions will forever be a part of my life. I don't know exactly how, whether that means I'm gonna start my own nonprofit or I'm gonna move to a different country to serve. I don't care if I never get a cold shower again. I know where my heart is, and this whole week, just going back to work and everything, I look at it so differently. I look at it as a means to end and skill building so that I can use these skills for the future. So this has been nothing but blessings, and the blessings keep on coming, and I never want to forget this. Like, I don't want to forget feelings I had from 2 years. I wanted to, if anything, be a foundation to the mission work forever.
So we're gonna talk a little bit about Ecuador. I'm just gonna say some of my top favorite moments there, and some of the things that were fun. And then, so I think it's a real blessing there. I hope everybody gets to go because it's just, I think that was one of the most memorable moments of my life. That week there, just because like Amy said, I had pure joy when I was there. Just being with the kids and being around people there. PD said something that was really special there. He said, life there is very simple. They don't have all the distractions here. It's just very simple. And I think because things are so simple and because you're just focused on God, you really feel His presence there. You feel His Holy Spirit there. It's just amazing there. And the story about the dog hill is a lot more in depth. So when we got there, me and Daniel, first Daniel said he didn't want to go. So I was like, okay, we're not going to go. But then we got there, and then when we got there, we were talking to Pastor Kim about the dog hill. And we were like, so is there really a lot of dogs? He said, yeah, man, there's a lot of dogs. And we were like, and then Daniel all of a sudden, because he said, and then we were talking, like, well, we kind of want to go. He's like, he said to us straight out, and this is why I kind of didn't want to go at first. He's like, don't go. Like, he said like that. So I was like, oh shoot. He's like, there's a pastor saying don't go. But then Daniel was like, let's just go then. I was like, all right. So we ended up walking, and there's 2 kids that I really love, Pablo and Angel. They walked with us there. And PD came, Mike came, and Shimon came, I think. And we were walking up the hill. And as we're walking, we're going up there. I remember we were walking, and then Angel, he stops me. He's like, no mas. Mas pero. I was like, what the heck, man? And then I look at Dave, he's like, just go. I was like, I look back, and there's like houses there on the bottom of the hill, and I see these people peeking out, man. And I was like, I look back, and then they go back in, and then they kind of peek out again. I was like, oh my gosh. And then I remember this one moment, I'll never forget it. This old lady comes out with a little bag. She's not, like usually when you're walking like this, you walk straight, but she's walking like this and smiling at me the whole time. So I was like, what the heck is gonna go on? So we started walking up the hill, and I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty scared, because I knew they were gonna come out, man. When you know what you're expecting, you kind of get nervous, but we were walking up, and I remember, we were walking up, and we crossed the line. There's supposed to be a line where a warning dog comes out, like a little dog, and it's supposed to bark, and it's like a warning, but there's no warning dog, so we're like, we're pretty far. keep walking, and we see like a tail. And me and Daniel freak out, and then we find out it's a donkey tail. So we were like, oh shit, we got really scared. And we kept walking up, and we got to like this little barn. And we're like, I don't think anybody's ever made it this far. So we're like, what is going on? And so he's like, let's just keep going, man, we're here. So we walk up there, and we see the dog was sleeping, man. And then like one dog got up, and they were mad, dude. Like as soon as they got up, they all got up, they started barking. I didn't even care about Daniel. Like animal instinct takes over. I just like look, turn, dipped out, man. And like, I guess like I was so lucky because they said that I was running so fast that like it looked like I was like bow-legged going down. It looks like I was gonna fall. But basically, yeah, I ran down, and then I think Daniel went the other way, and he reached a dead end. But I think the dogs were so mad they were chasing me, and like. I'll tell you right now, that was probably one of the scariest moments in my life. And Daniel said it too, like, my heart was jumping, you know, and
At least you guys didn't fall.
yeah, that was, at least we didn't fall. We made it out. And it's funny because Jenny said, like, she was on the bottom near the church, and she said her and Pastor Kim were just chilling there, and they could see us. They saw 2 white shirts, and then Pastor Kim, supposedly Pastor Kim was just shaking his head. But yeah, thankfully, you know, it was a good experience. We went to Dog Hill, we conquered it. And, but that was really but that was a great experience. And another really special moment there was there was another team from Peru there. They came, and they were so on fire for God. I was really inspired by them, and they came to help out. And they were going to be there for a month, and we got to know them. And when they first came out, they looked kind of fierce, man. Like, so I was like, oh man, they're kind of scary looking. But then we got to know them, and they're like so pure in heart, and they have the heart to serve God. And we bunked with 2 of the guys. It was really easy because their names were both Joel, so we just called them Joel 1 and Joel 2. That's how we called them, you know. And yeah, we were hanging out with them, and we just got to know them, and they were just an inspiration to us. And one of the guys, Joel, he's an amazing musician, you know. He's very talented with the guitar, and he can sing beautifully. And I remember me and Dan were talking to him, and there were times when we'd ask him, like, oh, like, you know, what do you want to do with your life, you know? And he's like, I want to just play music, you know? I was like, man, you play beautiful, you know? That's great. And somehow we asked him if he had a guitar, and you know, he didn't have a guitar, you know? He's like, I don't have a guitar. And I was like, how come, you know? He's like, because it's very expensive there. And I remember I asked him, like, do you have a guitar at church? You know? He's like, yeah, but then I was like, oh, that's great. And he's like, it's an electric guitar, you know? And at first he asked me and Daniel about a song book, and we were going to send him a song book, you know? But then he didn't have a guitar, so we were talking about it, and you know, everybody here had such a wonderful heart that everybody decided to throw down some money to buy him a guitar there. And so we all threw down money, and you know, I was kind of nervous because we asked Pastor Kim if there was a way. The only guitar store was like far away in the main city of Loja, and so what happened was we had to teach English, so you know, Daniel and PD went there, and we were kind of nervous because over there they don't work set hours; they just open and close whenever they want. You know, it's like siesta time. You know, we just chill out. But you know, me and PD and everybody, we prayed about it. Like, please, you know, God, let us find a good guitar for him. And we didn't have that much more cash at the time, you know, $250, and so we prayed about it, and they found a wonderful guitar for him, and it had an amp connector, and it was just beautiful because we know that by giving it to him, he's going to do great things with it, you know, and spread the mission of gospel because he has a heart for it, you know. And so on the last day, we were giving gifts to one another, and their gift to us was they sang us songs in like their own native language, is Incan language, Quechua, right? Quechua. And before we left, we asked Joel to come up, you know, and like, we had the guitar, and yeah, we had the guitar, and we kind of surprised him, and he started breaking down, you know, and supposedly he'd been praying for 2 years. I think all of us were crying, you know, like even the guys, you know, we were crying. Like, gave it to him, and then I'll never forget this moment. Like, I went back up to the room, and I thought it was the cutest thing ever. Like, we all went to the room, and they're all sleeping, and Joel is sleeping, right? And he has a space next to his bed, and his guitar is lying there, and he's sleeping with his guitar, you know, like it's his like baby. You know? I have a picture of it. I'll probably post it, but I think that was like one of the most memorable moments for me, just seeing another brother like being so happy, and I know he's going to use that gift, you know, to do great things. And the last thing I'm going to say is, I think the kids there are so special. I hope you guys get to meet the kids there because they're so sweet. they have such beautiful hearts, and they're going to change that country. They're the ones that are going to change it. And there was a verse that I was going to share this. This is a verse that I actually started reading. I was reading the Bible, and I read this verse before I went to Ecuador. It was like the first day in Ecuador. It says, "Then Jesus said, 'What is the kingdom of God like? How can I illustrate it? It is like a tiny mustard seed that a man planted in a garden. It grows and becomes a tree, and the birds make nests in its branches.'" And I feel like that verse is telling me, like, you know, these kids, the seed is being planted in those kids' hearts, you know, and one day it's going to grow, and they're going to be the ones that set that country on fire, you know. And PD said one thing to me, and he said, there's this kid I love, his name is Pablo. I was really close to him, and we would always hang out and follow me. And Pablo, I didn't know this, but PD told me, Pablo brought his whole family to church. He's the one that brought his family to church and got them saved. And his mom is a big part of the church. His brother, sister are there. He brought them to church because he went to VBS. And he told me something. He said, this was like the beginning of the week, he said, you know, Pablo brought his family to church. You know, he's the one that changed them. He's the one that brought them to Christ. So don't tell me that a kid can't do anything. You know? Don't tell me a kid can't change his family or bring people to Christ. I'll never forget that moment, because after that, when you see that, you see the power of what God can do with even little children, you know. And I think, you know, when we were there, hopefully we planted a seed. And, you know, I think they're gonna be the ones that change that country and change that town. And, you know, I'm really looking forward. I know I'm looking forward to coming back. We're all looking forward to coming back because we want to see that growth, continue to see it. Hopefully all of us will be able to go and see that one day.